fight.
How's it going, everyone? James Lynch here. Now, if you haven't been following my channel, for those who don't know, I'm an MMA reporter, content creator, journalist, whatever you want to call it. I've been doing this full time since 2017. And one of the questions I get asked all the time is, James, I'm an MMA fan. I want to get into the industry. I want to do what you're doing, but I don't know where to start. Well, here's some advice for you guys to hopefully help you out and lead you in that right direction. I don't have all the answers, but I got some tips that I think will help you guys out if you're just looking to get into the industry. Let's start first with, I think, the most important thing, which is don't just cover the UFC. I see a lot of people making this mistake. They're only interviewing UFC fighters. They're trying to get that viral video that hopefully takes off, and then they think they're going to make it that way. That's the wrong approach. I think the best idea is to do a mix. Cover both the UFC, cover prospects, cover international fighters, cover women's MMA. There's a lot of areas in this sport that need more coverage, and that's an easy way to get yourself noticed because there's just areas that aren't getting enough coverage, like I said. So don't just focus on the UFC. I think people have this mentality where it's like, oh, I just got to get a big fighter and then I'll get noticed. That's not the right mentality. The right mentality is to do a bit of everything because honestly, some of the best interviews, some of the best coverage you'll get is doing those grassroots fighters, whether they're prospects, amateur, professional, it doesn't matter. Even to this day, I still interview amateur prospects because I think it's interesting to see where these fighters could end up in the next couple of years. And it's a good way to start building those relationships early on, especially if you don't have the experience. If you're very inexperienced, who cares if you interview some prospect and the interview doesn't go well, as opposed to interviewing a big name UFC fighter and it doesn't go according to plan. So that's the first thing I recommend. Don't just cover the UFC. Why would I watch, such and such as UFC fight picks when I could watch, Luke Thomas or someone who's been doing this for a while? You have to remember that's your competition. It's very hard to break through in this industry. And one of the ways you can do that is finding areas that aren't getting enough coverage. So you won't get the views that you want, but that's why I say you do a mix. Do a bit of UFC stuff, do some, international stuff, prospects, women's MMA. Do that. I think that's an easy recipe to get ahead in this industry. And I would also say try a bit of everything. Don't just stick to one thing. Writing is probably the best tool you can have in this industry. Most of the jobs in this industry are writing jobs, mainly writing news. So if you can learn how to write early on, that's a key thing to have. But also learn how to video edit, learn how to shoot content. I have a whole video on this channel on how to record interviews and do video production and things of that nature. So there are resources out there to get you started. So writing, video interviews, do a bit of play-by-play, do a bit of commentary. Just try a bunch of different things that you think you could be interested in, because a lot of people, when they start out, they don't know what they want to do. So that's why it's a good idea as well to try a bit of everything and see what you like, what you don't like. Another key thing I would say is have some mentors. Now, you don't have to go out there and reach out to everyone, but find people that do things that you really like. For example, if you love long form writing, follow Sean Al-Shadi, follow Dwayne Finley, follow Chuck Mendenhall. These are all people in the industry who do very good work at what they do in terms of long form writing. If you like play-by-play, if you like being an analyst, Dan Hardy, John Gooden, there's a lot of really good analysts out there. And the easiest way to do that is to interact with them on social media. If you're not on Twitter, I highly recommend getting on Twitter right now. And don't use a fake profile. Don't use a fake name. Use your real name. That's another way to start creating a brand for yourself in this industry and standing out. So that's something as well. Have people check over your work. Don't hesitate to start making content. You can do that today, but make sure you're getting feedback so people can, look at what you're doing and make sure you're headed in the right direction. Maybe you do, do an interview and you're great at it, but you need to have people actually looking it over, and don't put it out on Twitter or social media and say, hey, what do you guys think? Because you're going to get a bunch of random people who have no idea what looks good and what doesn't. I think there's a lot of false information out there in terms of what's good and what isn't. I would listen to people who have actually made it and who have actually established themselves in the industry as far as getting good feedback. So that's another key thing as well. And speaking of social media, I see a lot of people making this mistake as well. Careful what you're putting out there on social media. Personally, I just put my content up, I walk away, I'll put the odd comment here and there, maybe when some news breaks, but I don't really put a lot of opinions on there. Stay away from religion, politics, all that stuff. Make your social media your content delivery feed, basically. Make it a spot where you're going to market all your content. But I see a lot of people out there bashing fighters, bashing media members. It's stupid. You're not, these are people, especially if you're bashing media members, that could be your coworker someday. So don't have that mentality of, oh, I got to chime in on everything. I would just put your content on there, have some friendly discussions, but keep it positive. Don't say this fighter sucks or whatever. I see a lot of people making that mistake, and you want to separate yourself from being that fan to being, someone respected in the industry when it comes to making content. So that's another key thing as well. Don't turn into a fan. Don't pose with fighters taking fist pump photos and things of that nature, right? Because you want to establish yourself as a content creator, as a journalist, as opposed to someone who's a fan. That's another thing too I would recommend. Just try and make sure you keep the fan out of things. We're all fans at heart, but just don't show it in public would be kind of my main thing as well. And then another thing I want to recommend as well is don't expect to get paid a lot of money in this industry. It's tough to make a living. Even right now, I work for a lot of different companies just to make sure I can make a living in this, but it's not an industry you go into to make a lot of money. So if you're in school, do this on the side. If you have a job, do this on the side. Don't expect to get hired full time. I'd say in this industry, the amount of full-time people who cover the sport is probably somewhere about 15 to 20%. There aren't a lot of people who do this full time. And the people who are doing it consistently have day jobs. They have money coming in. You're not doing this for the money because the money's not, it's not there. And don't expect to get paid right away. Build a portfolio, get those reps in. If you're doing interviews, do hundreds of interviews before you want to start getting paid. Same thing with writing. Make sure your writing's all fine-tuned and good. And then you can start pitching sites and trying to get hired. I have an entire video on this channel talking about how to get hired in the industry. That's sort of the next step here. But this is just a good video to kind of summarize what I think are some easy things to do to help you get noticed and help you move up in the industry and find what it is that you want to do in this industry as well. Like I said, try a bit of everything, try and get yourself out there as well. So to kind of summarize what I said here, don't just cover the UFC, cover a bit of everything. Also, don't just do writing and not do something else. Try a bit of everything. Try your hand at podcasting, try your hand at writing, video interviews, editing. Do a bunch of different stuff here that's going to make you stand out and more hireable, I guess, more employable if you're able to do more things. For me, I edit all my interviews, I do writing, I do all my questions, I promote all my content on social media. That makes me valuable in this industry compared to some people who can't do all that. So just keep that in mind. Also, mentors, like I mentioned, if there's people you really like that do really good content, reach out to them. A lot of people are easily accessible on social media. My DMs are always open. I get people asking me questions all the time, and I'm happy to help out. Make sure you have people that you're checking in with that can look over your work and tell you if you're on the right path or not. That's another thing. There's a lot of egos in this industry, a lot of people who think they've figured it all out. Trust me, those are the people that are going to get stuck in the mud. You got to make sure you're improving every single year. And I'm the same way, whether it's, improving equipment, improving my interview style, improving other things. You always got to try and improve every single year, or you're going to get left behind. Like I said, watch what you say in social media. Don't put a lot of opinions out there. And if you are, just keep it positive. Don't bash fighters, don't bash media members. That's an easy way to, make sure that you're not going to be in the bad books of anyone as well. And like I said, this is not a lucrative industry. You got to do this because you love this sport. There's going to be a lot of times you could be hanging out with your friends or doing other things, but instead you're doing an interview or you're inside watching a fight or something. So just be prepared to take up a lot of social time. I've been lucky to balance that in my career, but it does take a lot of time away from other things. So you got to really love this. And that's one thing I didn't mention here is if you're going to do content, start small. Don't do 5 interviews one week. Just do maybe 1 or 2 and then work your way up and just find a pace that you think is good. For me, when I was having a day job and doing this on the side, I'd mark a couple days a week where I'd block off about 3 hours in the evening, and that's when I would book my interviews. And that was easier for me to, kind of move my way up as opposed to doing, and I see this a lot. I see people doing, 5 interviews and then taking like a 3-month break. That's not a way to build a brand. You got to start doing things consistently and not missing a week. Try and get a piece of content out there every single week. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. If there's any other media members that are watching this and have some tips themselves, I'd love to hear it in the comments as well. I just want to try and create a video here for people who are trying to get into the industry, trying to figure out where they want to go. And hopefully this was of some help. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. Hit the like button on this video. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. I'm James Lynch, and I'll see you next time.
Yeah, let's kick it off, jab, cross to the beat, beating you MMA, heat is the main course of the feast. Lynch on Sports, the force, he's got his ears to the streets. Uppercutting with knowledge, shaking the brain with breakdowns of the game with that original flow. Head kicks with the pros, picks at the fights or anything in the mix.